Welcome to Storm Watch by GreyNoise Intelligence. Each week we drop the latest info on what's happening at GreyNoise, Censys, and VulnCheck, take a look at a roundup of important and timely cybersecurity topics, toss out some expert opinions, and drop the occasional conspiracy theory. Today we're back from our week of vacation at summer camp. Well, I wasn't there, but the rest of these people were goofing off. And we're going to be navigating the terrifying landscape of industrial control systems as Emily walks us through some research that will pretty much have everyone scratching their heads, and at the same time as you all duck and cover. Speaking of heads, I fully expect to have my hat handed to me by Emily when we dig into the details of Storm Bamboo's ISP compromise and crime spree back in 2023. Of course, we'll cover the latest in GreyNoise tags and SysAkev releases, but we'll also be introducing a new offering from GreyNoise. This isn't a product show. It's a cool thing. You should watch it, stay on, that will help you stay on top of your vulnerability management game. But we're going to kick off things in a slightly different way today, and start with a thorns and roses. So we're definitely going to need some background for this one. So let me get that set up for everybody here. Yeah. See if the kids knew what this one is, because they never know what this stuff is. You know what it is?
This was very predictable.
Oh, wow.
I
Well,
knew this was...
Wait. So it's either esoteric and sad or predictable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is not predictable.
Uh-oh.
And there is a reason for this. I'm going to put the cone on right now.
Oh,
The cone of shame?
Yeah.
Finally,
First of all, sorry, I put the
But
other
you're
watch
supposed
on.
to flip it around for the cone of shame.
The other way. Ha, very good. Boy, we are not in a good place right now. Slides up. All right.
Beautiful lampshade you've got on your head.
I know. I can't imagine why. Before that, though.
Can you wear this on our one-on-ones too?
Yes, absolutely. There's a reason for that, and so actually, I can't tell you to like and subscribe if I'm wearing one of this on my head. So don't worry about it. And this is why I'm wearing. I figured it's the trend. If at Black Hat DEF CON BSides, one of the largest cybersecurity companies in America, can dress up humans with lampshades on their heads, the very least I could do is emulate the example they were trying to set for all of us. All right, so I now can't talk with this on my head. So can I ask the folks that were at this thing, what the heck was this? Because I wasn't there. I didn't experience this. What's going on?
I missed this. I don't know.
You know, these Black Hat parties, they get questionable, in my opinion. Questionable.
So are those real people, or is this?
They're real people. They're real people.
That's like the discourse that I'm seeing is like, well, if they're mannequins, like if they're just fiction,
does it make it better? I don't think it makes it better.
It doesn't make it better if they're mannequins.
Well, if they're mannequins, though, it's a little Christmas story-ish. So
Yeah. So we have no idea. We have no idea what this what's going on with this at all. What happened here?
Multiple someones at Palo Alto thought this was a good, acceptable idea. Is what's going on here.
Oh, and as we were saying,
I don't know beyond that.
Yeah, in pre-show yesterday, we were there was I'm confident in this. I don't know, but I'm confident. There's 3 meetings at least where this go thumbs up. At least 3 meetings in big rooms and Zoom rooms or whatever. And I just don't understand how it's 2024 and we're still doing this stuff. I don't get it.
Literal objectification.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
My favorite way to think of this is to just think about the finance person whose job is just approving POs or purchases, and they see whatever dollar amount, and they see the line item as 2 humans for 6 hours wearing lampshades, and just what is their thought process like? I did not see that IRL though, so I did see lots of other things like F1 people and cars, and I don't even know.
Yeah, so let's flip this around. I was not there, and we really haven't and you all are just getting back and resting and all that kind of stuff. What went on? Give me the thorns and give me the roses from that time in Vegas. You were there most of the whole week. I think everybody was. How was it?
I feel like I had a lot to say about this yesterday, and today I'm
over
kind of recovering.
What did you say yesterday?
Emily, you go. You go.
I was just gonna say, I'm gonna go ahead and start with the roses because my thorns are aplenty this morning.
Nope.
We'll get to those maybe. I think the highlight of this conference every year for me, like increasingly, is getting to see like Kimber and Glenn and see folks that I really enjoy working with, people that I've worked with in the past. Just kind of getting to like see humans in 3D again, have us all in one place. Because like this field can feel kind of like sometimes it's intense. Like we're doing intense stuff at times, and knowing that you've got like good people around you also kind of like, I don't know, fighting the good fight to make it a little dramatic. Like it helps. It helps to feel like you're not sort of an island. So that's like, to me, that's the best part of these conferences by far.
I like your good thing. I'm going to follow it up with like kind of the same thread. And I think a lot of what we were relating to each other on yesterday is like, gosh dang it, it's still really hard to be a woman in technology. Like it really is. And I mean, I think we both, well, I don't know about you, if you directly like, but I definitely had a couple of microaggressions like directed towards me, and I'm just like so shocked. And it's one of those things where I'm like very far in my career and still these things like hit. And when I go to conferences, I don't I expect to be talking about like technical things. Like sure, we'll go into, you know, our personal lives and like talk about some things, but people are wacky, man. People are wild.
Yeah, if I could, I mean, Glenn, like if you too felt this way, like you feel, you can feel free to answer. Like you might, I have no idea how sensitive you are. But like a decade or more ago, it was actually, I remember talking to folks who were there at other security conferences, and like unsafe was the words that I kept hearing people say. So like while there may have been some, and I'm not excusing any of it, but there may have been some misogyny, some like what Kimber just mentioned. Did it feel unsafe anywhere at the conferences, or have we at least evolved to that point where there was some semblance of safety and stuff like that?
Ooh, I like this thought because genuinely, and I don't know if this is because like I'm just more familiar with the industry, but I feel like DEF CON's a much safer place for women than it used to be, and just any kind of diverse individual. Like I think it's way safer than it used to be. So like the community is absolutely evolving. It's absolutely like in a very interesting spot right now. I think we've heard a lot of discourse about like DEF CON going corporate and all of those kind of ideas. But I think it's we question in the chat of like safe in what sense, and like not just physical safety, but that there's also this idea of just being safe to like show up as yourself and have opinions and enter the conversation. And I think like we're getting better as a community in those things, but then things like what Palo Alto did with the women lampshades feels like it sets it back 5 years.
Like 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah.
Like I agree with that. Like I haven't been to DEF CON in a couple of years, but like my Black Hat BSides experience is like fairly similar. Like I also think like now that I've been in the industry for a while, like I've got my people, and I know kind of where like the safe spaces are. I don't know what it would be like as someone new to this industry coming in now. Like I hope we have made it more welcoming and more, but then like Kimber, like you're saying, there's still these little like these microaggressions where you're like, wait, what? Like this is like there's blatant stuff, but then there's like I don't know. Like I guess the way I was thinking about this too is like I feel like there are all these assumptions that sort of get put on women at conferences, and it's like, no, I'm not in marketing. Marketing is wonderful, but I'm not in marketing. No, I am not here to recruit for my company. And if you approach me and you act like I'm here to recruit, I'm going to take your name and I'm going to put it on a no hire list is what I'm going to do, because I don't want to work with someone like you. I am not here working a booth. I am not here because my husband brought me along. I am here because yes, I am already in the industry. I've been in the industry for almost 10 years. I'm here because I I think my skills and like my expertise, whatever I know how to do, can somehow in some way contribute to kind of like getting us toward like a slightly safer internet. That's why I'm here. I'm not here for any of those other reasons. And to assume anything but that, to assume anything but that a woman at a technical conference is there for those reasons, I think is wholly backwards and ignorant.
Not to mention that you gave 2 talks on top of everything else. Not to mention that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So just a quick recap for anyone who might be like questioning what a microaggression is towards somebody. Asking inappropriate questions about their love life while discussing something technical, assuming that their career is not technical, assuming that the only reason that they may have gotten a job is because they're a woman. Yeah, no, I think we've covered some good topics, and that's me and Emily's rant about being women in technology at massive technology conferences.
It would be interesting to hear, although I don't know if more folks newer to the field, I don't know, it'd be interesting to hear what their impressions are. I think Emily, I think it was she that made the point of kind of like, you start to find your people, you kind of reconverge with those people each year, and like trusted friends bring in trusted friends, so you get like a little bit of a bubble around you, so like it's a little different. I really, really, really hope that folks that this was their first DEF CON, I'll say that first, have a much better experience, like holistically, like kind of meeting new people and finding their crews to start building out. Black Hat it doesn't seem as surprising because it's still older school, it's still corporate, it's still I don't know, older school, right? Like the older generations and stuff, and it's just all around, money here, there, deals and all that. Whereas DEF CON is more like a community event. So it would be really interesting if anyone sees kind of a write up from that perspective on each conference. It would be really interesting to learn about, because it would kind of show, hopefully it would show some progress in this field.
Well, I think like to turn it towards a more positive thing, like I was really shocked to be meeting so many people where it was their first DEF CON. Or
oh wow, that's
like,
great.
Their first Black Hat, their first time in Vegas, like just kind of, that's such a fun thing to like have new people come in, and I'm like, whoa, let me show you this world. It's weird.
Yeah, like you want to like capitalize on that excitement. Like I think that's what kind of got us all in some regard into this, is like that sort of wonder of like, wow, the possibilities are kind of incredible and terrifying and cool. And like to see new folks coming in and like experiencing that for the first time. Like I met with a few folks who it was their first like time out, in Vegas for this week. And like I want them to have a wonderful experience. I want this to be a community in an industry where they feel like they belong and they can like do cool stuff and be recognized for it and not have to deal with kind of all the speed bumps that go along with it. So, yeah.
I was kind of thinking about this last night, about how that week, last week, but that week each year is one of the most complicated weeks for me from a standpoint of like logistically it's complicated, like energy wise it's complicated, like getting around like everything about it. Vegas is complicated, like all of these things are
life-threatening temperatures is complicated.
Yeah, but then on the other hand, you're so fulfilled as you go year after year and you build your crew and your crew brings crew and you combine crews and you catch up. And so I was kind of wondering, I was playing with this thought of like, is this what, because like we don't have high school, well, I don't know, but generally speaking, like high school reunions or class reunions aren't a thing anymore because social media or whatever. But I'm wondering, like, is this how previous generations felt at high school reunions? Because you go and you see people that you don't really like stay in close touch with, and you find out about their families and their careers and their successes and failures and whatever, what they're up to. And it's just like really, really rewarding to find these people that you cheer for and find, what's going on in their lives. So I was like, is this like our industry version of a high school reunion? Because I doubt most of us are probably actually going to high school reunions. But it's just, I don't know. It's amazingly terrible and awesome at the same time. The whole week.
It was so cool to be at Black Hat and seeing friends having events for their companies like that they've
That you
spun up.
used to just chill with,
Yeah, it's just
yeah.
like friends that I know that started as like hackers, just straight up
Yeah.
like hacking things, and now
Yeah.
it's like they're sponsoring Black Hat events, and I'm like, this is cool. Like
It is
we're
cool.
grown-ups, aren't we?
Oh no, we're the adults in the room? No.
Well, gosh, no. So before we slide into the first topic, I have to ask both Emily and Glenn, because Kimber, I think you were there just hanging around and talking tech with folks and not actually doing a talk, right? There was no talk. Okay.
No
so
talk.
For the two of you had talks. How'd they go?
Nobody left in the middle of mine. So.
Wait, is
always
that the
my
bar?
bar.
Because I think one person walked out of mine.
Todd,
No,
why'd you
Glenn-
walk out on Glenn's
no.
thing? That's not cool.
No, I think it was good. Glenn's talk was great. I was super entertained. I think it was really good.
Yeah, no, I thought it went well. I didn't get to see Emily's. Censys had a few talks. You had some other folks on your team with talks as well.
Ariana gave a couple talks, yeah.
Yeah, Ariana. Yeah. It was good. The room was nearly full, and the engagement was there. And I lost track of time and got behind, so that was fun. But no, it was awesome, and there was a lot of questions after, which I think is a good sign. A lot of interest, so it was good. I was happy. It was the first time for me to speak in Vegas, so that's cool.
Wow,
That's awesome.
That's
I didn't
great.
Know that.
I didn't know that either. That's great. And as we slide into the first topic, Todd should put how the roller skating went, because it looked like it went pretty well, but I didn't see any more posts on Mastodon about it after the couple first pictures. So I want to know what happened there. So we are going to start off. The fire is really appropriate because it's the dumpster fire that is industrial control systems on the stupid internet. And for folks that are actually seeing this,
wait, you forgot the
You forgot Overwatch.
Oh, I thought you would jump in. Overwatch. Do you have one? The Wardens in Vegas getting sick. Oh no, Overwatch is ill. Oh, I should put that back up. Meetings. So, wait, you got to see guest hosts in person. That's great. Whoa, look at that. That's great. Oh yeah, Noise Fest. No way, slot. Wow. Okay, so this is great.
You won that much money on a slot machine? That's crazy. $1,300.
Wait, can I ask how much was lost?
Like, was that
Is this
net?
net
No,
or
you,
is this?
no,
yeah.
you cannot.
I'm guessing that was a net win. That's impossible because slots are designed to just eat your money. So
Nice.
Aw.
Congratulations.
and then also Todd has put this unexpected roller skates appears to bring joy to a lot of people. So hopefully that will be a thing, a nice wholesome event.
I know we got to move on. Maybe next week we'll talk a minute about the VulnCheck gathering and the Censys gathering and the Noise Fest gathering. But
that'll be a
great.
good intro to next week. I don't have to come up with a really hard question for next week. That means
I loved seeing Todd in person, by the way. I mean, I loved seeing everybody in person, but
That was really cool.
yeah.
Like, hey, you're in 3D. This is so cool.
So weird.
All right, so we are talking industrial control systems. For everyone watching this or going over the slides or whatever you're seeing, what you're seeing is an actual, people pay money to have interfaces like this that they can view and control things that keep our water supply safe. It's great. It's totally fine. This is great. And you can learn more about that offline if you want to, besides just listening to us offline, or by reading part 1 of, I believe, a 2-part report series from Censys about the internet connected industrial control systems. That alone, just those words are terrifying, because these should not be on the internet at all. And I'd like to hand it over to Emily to give us an idea of just how hosed are we.
So, I don't really have great news. Okay. So this year, our team, it's our research team at Censys, we've spent a lot of time looking at internet connected industrial control systems. There are a couple of motivating attacks that sort of got us interested in this. For context, for folks who maybe haven't followed that, last fall, there was an attack on a water facility in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. They had one of their systems defaced. It turns out that an Iranian group was going around defacing these Israeli manufactured devices, and they just happened to run one of them. Didn't cause a lot of disruption, but like a defacement message, it's like, okay, there was someone who found a way in and they could have potentially done other things. So like there's that. Fast forward to January of this year, and a couple of small cities in Texas had their water control panels manipulated by a group known as the Cyber Army of Russia Reborn. So these folks, they posted a screen share of this in their Telegram channel like a few months later, I think, and just kind of showed, accessing these control panels that are accessible on the internet, going through them, kind of changing values, pressing buttons. Not really clear that there was a ton of knowledge about the panels themselves. But that actually did result in the overflowing of a tank in one of these cities. So again, not catastrophic effects, but I think sort of from our perspective, these were interesting enough and sort of like kind of warning level enough that we really wanted to get a better sense of this problem. And so we started looking at industrial control system exposure on the internet. And when we talk about industrial control systems, we're talking about any of these tools or processes that control, automation. You think of building controls, you think of factories, things like that. And a lot of them are associated with critical infrastructure. They're not one and the same, but a lot of them are involved in critical infrastructure processes. So we wanted to kind of get into that. A lot of previous ICS research has focused on these ICS, these low-level protocols, kind of binary, near real-time protocols. They don't tend to have authentication. They're pretty simple. They've been around for a number of years. There's not a lot you can really do with them typically. A lot of them are exposed on the internet though. But we wanted to sort of understand more about these interfaces that we're seeing manipulated. So these human machine interfaces, or HMIs, are exactly what it sounds like. That's the screenshot that you shared, Bob, just a minute ago. That's an example of one. And they essentially are these interfaces that allow operators to interact with and help control these machines, oftentimes on site. But as we unfortunately find, they are often remotely accessible.
But they're all secured with multi-factor authentication, right?
Oh, Bob. Oh, Bob.
It looks like it's running on NES.
Yeah, there's some real like excellent artwork on some of these. I mean, they're just like extraordinary. It's really kind of fascinating to see how sort of bizarre some of these are.
Yeah, and just for folks out there, like the internet connected part, these things are actual real physical systems too. So these are in real life, you could press these buttons. You're pressing these buttons over the internet in a really janky interface.
Yeah.
That people pay lots and lots of money for. I just have to keep putting like these aren't cheap systems. This is really sad. Anyway.
Well, a lot of them are, yeah. So when we look at this, right? So we really focused in the US initially because that was where, these attacks are happening. We wanted to kind of get a better handle on that. And so we found initially over 40,000 ICS devices connected to the internet in the US. Now, a lot of those are associated with like building controls, protocols like Fox and BACnet. So these are things that would like control an office building, like the lights, the alarm system. And it's not that you can't do something dangerous with those, but for our particular research, right, this time around, we were really focused on water and wastewater, again, because those had been subject to these attacks. They were kind of in the highlight, sort of what was going on. And so we took out the building controls, and that left us with around 18,000 exposed protocols, exposed devices. One of the goals that we had for this research was to actually be able to notify the owners and operators that, hey, you have this sitting out on the internet. This is really bad. But as we learned, it turns out that things like hosts running these protocols actually don't have a lot of identifying information on them. They are often running on like cellular or like consumer or business grade ISPs. So like Verizon, Comcast, AT&T, and like the DNS points to the telco. Everything points to the telco. There's nothing in these protocols. Again, they're pretty simple. They don't give you a lot of information. They don't write a lot of information out. And so it makes it really hard to figure out who owns them. So we were like, well, this is not, can't really do much with this. So then we shifted really to looking at these user interfaces, again, like the one that we just showed. Because these tend to be like, they might have logos, they might have city names, they might have other identifying information that can help us figure out who might be responsible for them. And so ultimately we found there were around 430 of them that we found, regardless of industry. And a lot of them don't have any authentication, or didn't at the time of our study. And that, like, I think all of us here are like really chronically online, if I may be so bold. We've seen some stuff on the internet. Like, I think we've all seen our fair share of like, wow, this is really bad. This was something that I think kind of surprised even us, where we were like, wow, there's like not even a password required. Now, the password could be like on the systems that have auth required, they could be default credentials. We don't know. We don't do anything against these systems. We just see what's publicly visible on the internet. And so you have to wonder there too, like, are you using default creds? So again, like, just not a great, not very reassuring, I'll say. Kind of alarming. So I'll pause there because I've just talked a whole lot about this.
I think the part that's most surprising to me is the ISP information. Like, I assumed that they would be on some sort of like state provider or like regional provider, but like it makes a ton of sense that they'd be on LTE or similar
It
networks.
shocked us too, because we were like,
Yeah.
we were kind of like, well, maybe they'll be on like cider blocks or like ASs that are owned by a utility, which of course silly us, because a lot of these utilities they're very small. They don't have a ton of resources.
Kind of takes
So like,
money to own an AS too.
right. So like, I don't know why we thought that would be the case, but then we get into this question of like, well, the telcos need to do, like, we need to get them all in a room and be like, here, you have to find a way to let these people know that these are out there. Like, this isn't good. Because even those protocols that are exposed, while they might not be the most kind of like damning piece of this, I am very willing to bet that that is a little bit of a canary of sorts. Like, if you've got that exposed to the internet, what else do you have misconfigured, set up in a way that it probably shouldn't be, using insecure defaults, like that kind of thing? So
I think like knee-jerk reaction does feel surprising what you're saying, Kimber and Emily, about the ISP. But then as I think about it, maybe it's less surprising just thinking of one, like where probably these are physically located. If it's a water plant, like that's a lot of underground infrastructure. You have to dig around, for wired internet or whatever. Plus, there is, I mean, uh, based on based on the graphics card of these interfaces, I'm assuming the bandwidth use is very, very, very low. So the the uptime for LTE, 5G, whatever, is probably pretty great for whenever there's outages, because cell towers have backup generators and stuff like that. So like it's probably also more reliable. But maybe there is an argument. Well, not maybe, it's a joke. An argument to be made for and ICS things need to, like, when we say to segment your management ports, maybe segment your ICS controllers.
Well, kind of what I'm wondering is like, how would you go, like, how are these things actually like connected? And then like, how are they managed, and like, who's doing the management of that? Like, surely the operator is not doing the management of the like network.
consulting companies, a lot of times.
Yeah.
Consulting companies that may or may not want to offload the cyber function of what they do, because they don't want to get sued if there is an attack. They don't want to be responsible for it. One other thing I'll note, and Bob, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's fine.
But we noticed, so we also kind of started looking in the UK. In the UK, there's actually ISPs that specialize in hosting ICS, or as they refer to IoT, or industrial Internet of Things devices. So that's kind of interesting, and something that I think we want to dig more into in the future, in the implied part too. So.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in because I think I live in the small, like of all of the folks here, I live in the smallest town, the smallest area. Like I am in not super rural, but fairly rural Maine. And so we have the Berwick Water and Sewer District and the South Berwick, because you can't have one Berwick, you have to have multiple ones, and with each with 7,000 humans in them, because why would you want to band together and get the economy of scale or whatever? But anyway, like those folks, like they barely can, like, and there's no shade on them. That was deliberate. There's no shade on them because it's like that. This isn't what they do for a living. Like they actually just, they're trying to keep the water and sewer working for this little community, for the folks that are like in the town area. Like I'm not connected to any of that, but there's like a little town area where everyone is. So their expertise is like literally just that. And they don't want to have to drive, from one end of our town border to the other one to deal with something if they can do it remotely from there. Because I've had this conversation with them before. So like they have stuff hooked up to either Comcast or to AT&T, depending, because cell coverage here is also wonky. So it's either AT&T or Verizon. Like it's not just one of them. And they don't even try to go, because both AT&T and Verizon have what you just said. Like there's a ICS tier that you could subscribe to, and they will do different things and shift around the way networking works and everything. But that costs more money, and they don't know to ask for it. So I just want to get this on the internet. So boom, they put this on the internet. So that, like, there's a lot of those. I'm not going to suggest that all 400-ish were of my size and caliber, but I'm going to guess a good chunk of them were probably these folks who are just trying to get something done and don't honestly know any better for those things.
So Emily, so you mentioned that you attempted, or you did notifications. Like what was the response? What was the impact of that?
Do you want to be more sad, or do you want to be the same amount of sad as you are right now?
Oh no.
So earlier this year, we actually tried this in an earlier round of this research. We sent, I want to say, close to 40 notifications. They were via email. They were from Censys, the Censys research team, which I realize if you're not in this industry, you don't know who we are. We don't have name recognition. But we sent notifications to about 40 organizations and said, hey, we found this on the internet. Here's some links to CISA. Here's some recommended, we just want to let you know. We got human responses to 2 of them. But in looking at the posture of those hosts over the next couple of months, I remember seeing one thing go offline and then come back a month later. So not,
So 5% actually responded.
But then it's not really clear, right? And then it's not clear like what they actually did. So we ended up we were like, we have all this data, like we know what, like we were able to find contacts for some of them, or as best we could. And we actually ended up having really great luck with the EPA. We were like, hey, you're responsible they're specifically mandated around drinking water, not water and wastewater, everything but drinking water. And we were like, here, we found this, because we were just kind of sitting on it. Like, what do we do? Like, we want to do something. No one's listening to us. Like, please help. And they actually started reaching out and making notifications and have had some success. Like, it's been really, really heartening. I know they've gotten some interesting press in the last couple of weeks around that, but like from our experience, handing them data and going, hey, we found all these, you have the authority, please go like do something. They've been great. Like it has renewed my faith in like being able to actually have a meaningful impact here.
I mean, I'm a big fan of clean drinking water. Just saying.
Love it. I love water. Hydration's great. Yeah. Water in my coffee, there's no water in, well, yeah.
I think the best part of this conversation is that we vapor locked Todd on the precision of these janky interfaces. Because he's all over like the precision of the measurement of the. I mean, they are industrial control systems. Like they do have to be decent. Like this isn't just some janky pump outside of your house or whatever.
Look, they have bad interfaces because they're extremely technically advanced.
Yeah, the sensors are.
It doesn't need to look pretty.
Their pixels are not high precision.
So when is part 2
Uh,
coming out? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Kimber. I'm sorry. Go
Wait,
ahead.
yeah, I have a question
Yeah.
about like the detection of them. So these like the graphical interfaces of like, oh, backup, whatever, like the thing that looked like the tanks,
Yeah.
that's over the HTTP like port.
Yeah. So this actually I think was over VNC.
Oh,
But
yeah.
these were a mix of either VNC or HTTP, which
Okay.
ugh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily that you're like looking for the devices that have Fox or BACnet like ports open. It's like these also have the like secondary verification of having the VNC or the HTTP or the some sort of remote desktop like situation so that you can see that it's the ICS
Yeah.
system.
Yeah. And actually some
Oh,
of the ways, oh god, I'm sorry.
and then my secondary follow-up to that. How did you tell which ones were honeypots and which ones weren't?
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So this was actually kind of a fun thing. So I actually talked a little bit about this in my talk at BSides Las Vegas. But in terms of like separating some of these out, there are a couple of really well-known like open source industrial control systems, honeypots, things like Gaspot, things like Conpot, just as some examples. There's a lot more to it than that, but just as kind of an idea of how this works, knowing what those look like, being able to audit that code because it's all on GitHub and going, well, you know what, actually the date stamp or the date time format in ATG, the real ATG is different from Gaspot. One of the folks on our team found that, and like some other like interesting differences in static versus dynamic values. So just being able to like actually look at those has been huge. And then for some of the others, they're like other interesting ways. I won't totally give away all our secrets, but like that's kind of a good example of sort of how we tease those out.
Yeah, git stalk all the people that work at Censys because you find really cool things. At least I have as I git stalk you folks.
All the stars.
Yep, all the stars. That's also why I don't star things anymore on GitHub.
I start things on a separate. Yep.
Yeah. So part 2 is coming out when?
Yeah. So we're sometime this fall. Tentatively.
You're gonna make us
probably
wait till the fall?
in November. Well, I mean, it's August, Bob.
Stop. Just that's
really
not fair.
not that
August.
That's
It's
not fair.
mid-August.
That is not fair.
Fall is like 5 weeks away. Yeah.
I know. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. So a couple weeks, right? Probably like end of October, mid-November, somewhere around there.
Cool.
Because we have
It'll
a
be
couple of
spooky
other things
surprise.
we want to. Yeah, exactly. There's a few other loose threads we want to like kind of tug on, I think. So yeah, very excited about that.
Awesome. Yeah, so everyone read the blog post and ask all the Censys team questions. They're really smart. They do really great work, and you'll be terrified like I am now about these things because I didn't think it was as bad as it was, and it's actually really bad. So speaking of really bad, the other thing we want to talk about is a bit of research that Volexity put out. I don't know if it's a full year from when the actual incident happened, but it's been a while. It was a 2023 incident. And it's a fascinating write-up. You should read the write-up. And I also want to give Volexity props as being like one of a handful of like cybersecurity like research companies that does not just default to DALL-E or whatever to generate images. Like they pasted a bunch of art on top of each other like, and made a really nice graphic for their thing versus like ask the AI to do it, which is just stealing content from artists and stuff. So good on them for actually doing that. And like I'm just so thankful that we have talented folks like Austin, and then Ashley does them. Ashley's pretty good at putting these things together too, by the way, everybody. Overwatch is pretty talented in many levels. So that's one. I just want to say that to them. Just the really high level of this thing, and we're going to dig in a little bit to this. And Emily is just pretty much going to just put the boxing gloves on and just beat me up now after this whole thing. So, Storm Bamboo, we got to stop naming them these things, people. Compromised an ISP's DNS infrastructure to alter DNS query responses for specific domains. Let's be clear. This means they breached an ISP, breached the DNS admin, and had full control over the DNS infrastructure of an unnamed ISP. That gave them full control over. So, and most folks don't do what probably everybody listening to this does, which is use a different DNS server than provided by your ISP. But every other normal place does that. So, like they were able to redirect traffic for automatic software updates to attacker controlled servers. And like I would just head off Emily here. Well, how could that be? Wouldn't that be secured with HTTPS? It would be known. So yeah, the attackers, I guess, did a bunch of surveying of the kinds of software that people run on Windows. I'm going to guess Windows is the primary target for these things, and the kind of things that do updates. And it turns out that a lot of software does updates over HTTP, which is just insane. I'm almost speechless for that.
Is it, Bob? Are you upset about that?
I'm a little upset about that. Yeah, a little bit.
I was more surprised at. I think it's more surprising that there's updates that are not signed than that there are updates over.
Oh, that's adorable, Glenn. I mean, signed updates. That's cute. I mean,
sorry, we interrupted the story. We should.
Oh
get
no,
the
no,
narrative out
that's
and
fine.
then-
That's fine. The DNS records were poisoned to resolve to an attacker-controlled server in Hong Kong. There you go, because that's where your updates would normally come from too, right? From the software. After compromising the systems, they deployed a malicious Chrome extension called Reload EXT. Another reason to probably not use Chrome. And this attack demonstrates the risks of using insecure update mechanisms and the potential for widespread compromise through ISP level attacks. And I guess. I mean, there's a lot of levels here. So if Emily, if you just want to like get it over with, go for it. Like just.
I don't know where to. I'm just gonna sit quietly in the corner for a minute.
I really appreciate the fact that the ISP firewalls are what was compromised here. The Catch DNS operated on it was like specifically made for Linux devices, and that is really fascinating to me because usually we just kind of like hear about like, oh, they got in via phishing and blah, 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 blah. But this is threat actor stuff, like real deep, like threat actor stuff. And
it's very clever.
Yeah. The programs that were affected by this, like we kind of dunk on them and are like, oh, they weren't signed updates and whatever. But you have to realize that we're very #blessed in the United States to not have as much internet filtering and limiting as people in foreign countries do. So this attack, it was designed to target like certain people and the programs that they use, and it was very specific. So the Vulnexity write-up, as always, includes a ton of information, but this is a really good walkthrough on like if you think about like how could a firewall be compromised. It has the walkthrough on that.
And I don't want to. Yes, I don't, I'm not picking on the ISP. Like things get hacked. Like we know this. Like it just kind of happens. But Glenn, before I say anything else, go for it.
Hack.
Oh, I was gonna say it's also a good reminder that like the whole like security in depth conversation where there's multiple ways this could have been mitigated across multiple vendors, across multiple, like I said, like the firewall application, signed update, TLS. Like there's different. Any one of these things would have prevented this, but whenever everything aligns, then you can't just point at the firewall and be like, oh, this is your fault. You can't just point at the vendors and say it's your fault. So it's just kind of also a good reminder of it's everyone's responsibility to do secure code, secure update, secure boot, like all of these best practices that we know in the year 2024. But I think Kimber, your point is really good there about not only like with HTTPS, like there's also the overhead, the bandwidth overhead involved in that. And when you have really low bandwidth remote sites or stuff, like you're looking to cut every packet that you can. I know like even shipping containers, like cruise ships, stuff like that are interesting networks because they're so remote, but they're full networks, of course. So, every packet truly matters in some of those scenarios. So it's kind of easy to see where maybe some TLS and some encryption gets like booted.
I think like this too, also being a very legitimate like hack, like very, very, very deep leveled, like how would you have detected this from the ISP side? Like where would you have had to be collecting logs from? Like what would you have had to look at? And I don't think there's an emerging market for monitoring your firewall logs.
Your
But we
upstream
really,
DNS requests? That's a lot of
right,
logs.
right. That's so many logs. And like you really only would have been able to detect this by like collating all of that data from devices that had downloaded the stuff from the malicious DNS entry.
It's almost deserving of a golf clap, maybe. Like,
I give it a golf clap.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm like,
As well
okay,
executed.
like,
So
I'd rather read about this than someone's phishing attack or like.
Well, wait, would you though? Because the
Yes,
success rate.
because it's not such or a Citrix that didn't have MFA on it or something. Like, I'd rather hear about these kind of
Well,
hacks than.
I bet the initial vector was phishing, like to infect the ISP. Just saying.
it could have been vulnerability though on something. It could have.
Well,
I'm still stuck on the statement that you'd rather hear these. I'm trying to think, like, do I? Yeah, I mean, I guess that means then we've moved the bar. Like, if we're
Right.
having to force actors to sort of
This took some
Double
work
This thing, yeah.
yeah.
to figure out like the applications that would work, the ISP that would work, where to redirect the the updates from. Took some work and some infrastructure. Like, this wasn't just as opportunistic as it comes, whereas so many of the major hacks are just opportunistic, and that's what like.
Yeah. What do you think the dwell time was?
Ooh, great question. Did they? I don't know that I read that.
Did they say? I don't. Yeah, I don't know. if
I
it was
didn't see that
there.
in there either. Yeah.
I bet it was not short because this. I'm assuming it took a lot of like the telemetry that you mentioned. I assume it took a lot of organizations calling saying there's some weird things happening before they kept like moving upstream to figure out what was up.
Well, if they're sitting at the firewall, they can see which updates are trying to be HTTP or not, and that could have been what led them to particular software, and then they had to do the reverse engineering of that to get the update to do something different than what. I mean, there's just a lot involved here. It's pretty. I do have to say kudos to the attackers on this one. They did a pretty good job. Where I saw Glenn was going somewhere, and then he diverted, which is fine. It was a good diversion. I wanted to kind of boomerang where you were going with like what the supply side could do, and tied into something that Emily was talking about too. So a lot of these regional places that do utility type stuff, so not the water so much, but on the electric side, they're also the regional ISPs. And there are also a lot of people that like do like resell like wireless internet, whether it's from like the Verizons or the satellite stuff or whatever. So they're their own little ISP, and like that's where you go through, and they have the routing infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. They are way more susceptible to some type of attack like this than like Comcast is, or like an actual real Verizon is. For all their faults, like they do have a bunch of stuff in place to do those things, and the smaller ones probably don't. It's and the skill set's just not there to deal with these things. So it is possible this could happen at a lot of the smaller regional ones out there. So the question I have for the three of you, because we don't like to just put problems out there, what can the individual or like the business that's using internet and having they're just trying to use the ISP stuff, what are like one or two, because we can't be comprehensive here, it's not, the whole show's not about this, but like what are like one or two mitigations or things they could do to not fall prey to something like this as the actual user of the internet?
I mean I'm assuming this would be considered supply chain attack just based on where the failures kind of lie.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Kinda.
So I feel like at least from an organization, like for personal individual users, I don't know, run AV. But for the organizations and corporate networks, organizations that are involved, I think it goes back to some of those how what software is allowed in your environment. Does the software use secure update methodology, like signing? That's really the thing that comes top of mind because, or Bob, I think you mentioned earlier, if you use your own DNS, but then also like the way DNS fails over, like, I don't know, like that gets to be a whole thing. But I'm seeing this as a like, if I think at least the initial thought, if organizations look at this as a supply chain attack and apply some of those best practices as far as ensuring code is updated regularly and securely and validated, whatever, then that would help here. I don't know if anyone has thoughts on that.
I think that's probably the best bet, right? Is like see what programs to have those unsigned updates and like what's functioning over HTTP still. That's definitely good to know. Like what's calling for an update over HTTP. But the DNS point, like originally Bob said, like don't use your provider's DNS records. And I kind of like, mm, there's some weird DNS manipulation that can happen with like if you use 8.8.8 or 1.1.1, like, you know, things can happen there. But like as a
It's always
user,
DNS.
like on the user level, if you were
Yeah.
just operating like,
I mean,
So
there
what
are
about
probably
comparing-
wouldn't swap to that.
there are services like NextDNS, which it now granted that they could be a target of something and be taken over, but it's less likely because they're focused on safety. And you could just substitute everything that you have for that. They also run DNS over HTTPS, so you don't actually have to use UDP DNS either. So
Yeah, maybe that's the answer, is not using UDP DNS. Maybe.
Is this, would you consider this differently than if you rewind like 10, 15 years when the advice was like never use public Wi-Fi ever, 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 because most traffic was not encrypted, right? That you were using, so it could be intercepted on the network or altered. I'm wondering if this falls into like basically taking the old like public Wi-Fi injection or diversion and applying it just at the ISP scale. Like you don't have to be in our hotel. You just do it at a much larger scale. It feels very similar.
Do you mean like, can you say more about what you mean by that? Like,
So thinking about like when you fool someone into, you know, you're at Hilton and you set up a fake Hilton AP and they connect to you and you man in the middle it basically situation. It feels like a supply chain man in the middle type situation is kind of how I'm equating it in my head. And so it feels almost retro in a way.
and in like 3 months, a lot of people are going to get used to clicking on the, oh yeah, I don't care if that certificate error because of the entrust situation. So like they're going to get the pop up saying this is an invalid certificate. I don't care. I just want to get to the site and do. So they're going to
They got to click through the certificate area, then they
Yeah.
got to click through the cookies, accept all, and
Yeah.
they got to click through it. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. All right. So monitor your traffic for HTTP updates and not HTTPS updates. Consider using a more secure alternative to DNS.
Know what's on your endpoints. Know what's allowed to be on your endpoints.
I love DNS. I love DNS servers. Protect them.
It's always DNS.
Keep them safe.
So you had some fun. Your team had some fun at VulnCheck.
Look,
at the
Patrick Garrity had some fun making pretty colored graphs. But I mean, it is gorgeous, and it is the whole write-up is great. It has a bunch of different graphics that help explain the state of exploitation in the first half of 2024. And this is just kind of, if you're on a vulnerability management team, or if you're in that CISO/risk assessment kind of area, this gives you a good idea of like, where are your actual like devices that are most, or programs or whatever, like that are the most risky. Because this graphic that in particular that we have up is kind of visualizes like how many exploited vulnerabilities are there in the different categories, like network edge device, like CMSs, open source. And we can break that down and kind of see like, oh, if you're running a CMS on your infrastructure, like a content management, like WordPress or things of that nature, probably going to need to be focused on that over something like your email programs, you know, making sure those are updated. So it's kind of not my best example, but it's a great report on just like the state of exploitation and really diving into what we can see based upon what we know is exploited. Yeah.
It also just shows how hard this job is for vulnerability, but being someone that has to deal with vulnerabilities, manage vulnerabilities in an organization. it's really, really hard. That was a terrible like self-indulged segue.
But
To
it does look like AI was a very small segment on the bottom right. So AI is safe, right?
For
Is
that-
now.
Oh,
AI.
Glenn,
takeaway?
why?
For now.
AI is very safe. It's very because
Okay, perfect.
No harms, zero.
because you shouldn't use it.
Oh no. Patrick perked up in the chat. He's the creator of this.
So we, being GreyNoise, have a new thing, and there's a blog post that we have up. You can read the introduction to it, and I'm just going to talk about the thing, which is our new CVE-based vulnerability prioritization tool that we have. It is for enterprisey or people with like cash money, so you can try it out. And but like if you really want to use it, you're gonna have to like cough up some dough. And basically, you get to see when CVEs are having activity thrown against them by bad folks out there. And it's actually pretty neat. There's an API which you're probably gonna want to wire up to your vuln management systems, but we actually have of course. Between the design team and the folks that do the implementation, we have beautiful interfaces. So we have a great interface to actually see these things. You get information about the inbound activity happening right now, and you get block lists based on the CVE. That was kind of doable before. It's really doable now with this. It's a lot easier, like it's a lot less janky. You also get the activity graph on the CVE basis, as well as some deep dives into the actual CVE details if you want from the API as well. So there's a lot of good information. This should help folks that are trying to get buy-in to patch like things that are actually being exploited, or make sure that things that are being exploited are actually clean, to do that more out there. So hit up the link and you should be able to take a look at this and have some fun with it. The tag roundup, we have a singular tag. It is the Apache. I think this was the thing that made it to Kev last week. Apache Offbiz CVE 2024. There was a bit of activity thrown about this one, so y'all can take a look at that. And has it been 6 days since the last Kev release? Has it? Anybody check?
I don't see anything today.
Oh, look at that. Wait, are we going to get through a Patch Tuesday without a Kev?
No.
Wow.
Today's Patch Tuesday. No.
Okay. There are 3 of them since the last time that we were together. One of them is the Offbiz one that we had on there. Android kernel, because there's like always Android kernel vulnerabilities, and that common was interesting as well too. I saw a lot of buzz on the socials for that one. But it was actually great having y'all back in the saddle again. I kind of missed doing this last week.
What
It
did
was
you do
weird.
without us?
I cleaned my desk.
Oh,
Probably
yeah,
got
that's
some work
right.
done.
Yeah.
Wow.
I cleaned my desk. I rearranged my. You can't see it because of the fancy thing behind us, but I actually rearranged
We believe you.
my comics and toys in the background. Got some work done without Glenn bugging me every day for something. It was great. It was really
Glenn
good.
does do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Glenn needs
Sure.
a lot of attention.
yeah. Karen feeding. It's all right.
Oh.
I mean, just don't feed me after midnight.
Cool. I do appreciate the engagement in the chat as well. You all do a great job being like our extended co-hosts and extended GreyNoise fam and VulnCheck fam and Censys fam out there. So, as we wrap up this episode of the Stormwatch, we've covered a lot of ground, from the latest in DNS hijacking techniques to the evolving landscape of vulnerability exploitation. We hope our insights into Storm Bamboo's sophisticated ISP compromise and the importance of secure software update mechanisms have given you plenty to think about. It's a good thing we've talked about those. Remember, in the ever-changing world of cybersecurity, staying informed is your best defense. Keep your systems updated, your protocols secure, and your cyber weather radar on high alert. Until next time, this is the Stormwatch crew signing off. Stay safe out there in the digital storm, and don't forget to check those update signatures. Take care, everybody.